It's your one-stop shop for great wrestling. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Ray Russell brings a host of great shows right to your device. There's the Wrestling Memory Grenade, Regional Wrestling, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Amazing Puro Academy Show, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's long-running hit, Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the hilarious Other Ship podcast, and a whole lot more. Great shows and great guests, but where do you find all this stuff? Really simple. Try logging on to WrestleCopia.com. As I like to say, it's your one-stop shop for great wrestling memories. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. It's our first brand new show in a long time. Bob is back. Joe is back. And as for me, well, I hurt my back. Just like these guys, they were on the shelf. I was on the shelf, too. I can remember it just like it was yesterday. Okay. Please jump up on a gurney. Sure. Whoops. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Just hand me those stone pills. I'll be fine. We're back. This is the first time I've sat in front of a microphone in, what is it, about 8 weeks? 9 weeks? Something like that? Some crazy amount of time. My name is Bob Smith. Welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. You might remember me from my days with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It is so good to be back with you all. As you may know from social media, I had some surgery. The surgery went with flying colors. I was thinking about detailing the surgery for you guys, but nah. I'll just say that it has been a long convalescence getting over it. I mean, it's going to be a period of months before I'm myself again, and not until early next year, really, for one aspect of the surgery I had. But it was oral surgery. Everything went well, and I want to thank everybody, especially you guys on Facebook, for writing in and giving your concern. As I told you before, don't worry about me. It's all going to be good. But here's the funny. We're going to talk a little bit about the illness because at the same time I was having my operation at a hospital in New York City, our friend Joe Puccio, by the way, Joe, welcome back, guest. He didn't put anything in the stat box today. What's with you? No, nothing? You were hustling to get in here. I know that's what it was.
First of all, welcome back. I'm sorry that the first person that you have to sit across from doing this now after your surgery is me. But I will say, yeah, I am just noticing that I did not put a name. And I think that just speaks to a little... We haven't done this in so long that I'm actually a little out of sorts, that I completely forgot to put a fake name.
Something, I'm out of sorts too. We were in such a rhythm doing this show with the guests. Everything had a rhythm to it. The contacts on my phone and my calendar, everything jibes. And then all of a sudden, there's 2 months with nothing in any of the boxes. 2 months. There's just nothing to put there. And I go, oh, gosh. And then to get back into it, it's like, where do I plug this in my computer? Yeah. No, it's not quite that bad. But, yeah. So my story was that I had oral surgery, and it was quite extensive. I still can't open my mouth like more than a quarter inch or so. But I will say, to make it short and sweet, they hacked half of my mouth out. Seriously, I'm not even making that up. But Joe, I explained it to you. It's about right? About half of my mouth is gone. After the first year, what was took out will be replaced. But for now, I feel that the hardest part is just getting my energy back at this point. Because you've been laying around for weeks. And the first month I was on a liquid diet. And liquid diets are not fun. they're not a blast. Here, have some broth.
The only thing they're fun on is your waistline, I guess.
Yeah, I lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Not even trying to. I mean, I got my calories in, but it's like, yeah, it's harder to do. If you're on a 2,000 calorie day of diet like I am, it was really hard to make it to 2,000 calories.
Wow.
If you're having broth and cottage cheese, and what was
Right.
I eating? What was I eating? I was eating those old man energy booster drinks like Boost and Ensure and stuff like that, which are perfect for this. And I could have some ice cream, but you don't want to have too much ice cream because you know you don't want that much sugar.
How about
But
yogurt?
yogurt I ate,
Yeah. Yeah.
anything soft if you can name it, pudding,
Mhm.
chocolate vanilla pudding. But you know what I did have during this convalescence, my friend, is
I
Carvel.
get out of here.
Yeah, of course I did. I own the key to the New Hyde Park, Carvel now. It's one of those thank you customer keys. No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke, but no, but seriously, you can have that, but only soft serve. And I couldn't chew. You're
Mhm.
not supposed to chew a whole lot. So now I can chew a little bit, but still not much. I'm still on a soft food. I don't want to bore the people out there, but everything's cool. But anyway, I'm on a gurney. By the way, the surgery took about 4 hours. That's how much stuff needed to be done. So at the same time where I'm laying in a hospital bed in Queens, New York, here's Joe Puccio, and tell us about your trip and what happened. Because you haven't even given me the full Monty on this. So why don't you just take it over? Because we were both on the shelf at the same time, and he's going to explain what happened.
Yeah, mine was very different. I didn't have any kind of surgery or scheduled surgery or anything like that, but I'll try to make this as brief as possible. Yeah, I mean, mine was nothing like yours. I didn't have a surgery. I didn't have anything scheduled like that. Mine was just a bug and some bad luck. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. Earlier this year, I've been experiencing some bouts of vertigo on and off, so decided to go to a neurologist to check it out. He booked me for a MRI with contrast. All easy, right? Nothing big to that. I went, did it, went okay, and then right after I was done with it, went back to the waiting room, passed out for about 5 minutes. I was literally out for 5 minutes. Luckily, I was in a hospital for the tests, so I went to the emergency room and they did a bunch of more tests, and they realized that I had some type of bad reaction to the contrast in my veins, something or other. I won't bore you with that, but I was there all day. Here's the kicker: is that this was the day before my wife and I were going on vacation to Mexico for about 4 or 5 days. So I was jonesing to get the hell out of the hospital because I had stuff to do in preparation of our early flight the next day. So I'm there all day, did run a bunch of tests. They all said I was fine. Finally, we had to do, what do they call that? AMA. Against medical advice, where you check yourself out of a hospital because
Oh yeah.
because even though I felt fine and all the tests came back fine, I was supposed to wait for that one doctor to come in and say, yes, you are okay. And after being there 6, 7 hours, I said, I got to go. We leave. Everything's fine. Go to Mexico, having a great time. The next morning, the last day in Mexico, got an earache. Thought it was just something that would pass. By the time I got back to JFK, to Kennedy Airport, the next day, I knew I had something. It was everything. The fever, I had 103 fever, I want to say. Yeah, it was high. Coughing, chills, but just everything. And I'm thinking, all right, it's just a bad cold of something. Being like the usual, as my wife always says, a typical man that doesn't want to go to the doctor. I didn't do anything about it. After about 5 days of it not getting better, went to my general doctor. They gave me an antibiotic. Still didn't go away. Finally, after about 2 weeks from there, my wife got sick and it started to go away, but she got sick. She went to the doctor and she was diagnosed with strep throat, which was most likely picked up either in Mexico or on the plane coming back. Could have been one or the other. So bottom line is I probably had that too, or something like it. We gave it to each other, but this wasn't a simple cold. This was something that I had a fever for several days, couldn't break it, and it was miserable. So when all was said and, me and Bob were sort of commiserating together, I would, text him here and there before the surgery, a couple days before the surgery, and then when it was all over. And again, this is nothing like you obviously had a surgery, you were out for all this, so it's completely different. I'm not trying to compare it, but it's just
No, no,
kind
no.
of interesting that we both were kind of on the shelf, because I can tell you right now that you didn't have this surgery. There's no way I wouldn't have been able to tape any shows while I was in that state, because I was just coughing and feverish and everything. But the good news is we're both on the mend here, right? And we can get back to doing this now.
Yeah, I even have in the interim, I got new glasses and they
Hey.
suck. They're terrible. I don't know what it is. I don't think I'm seeing as well with the new ones as I did with the old ones because they kind of messed up the script when they made them and blah, blah, blah. So I've been just doing personal health things for a
Mhm.
whole month. I haven't had the freedom to do it. Now I can go outside, I can take a walk, I can drive the car. Now everything is normal in that regard. It's really mainly just diet and getting my oomphies back, and they'll come. I got another sports season in September. I'm a bowler, and I want to get my strength up and get my game going before. So if I can get to the lanes and start pushing the ball around, I should be able to get my energy and strength back up, and everything should be cool. But again, I want to thank everybody who said, "Hey, get well." And I have gotten well, and thanks, you guys are like a lift in my shoe out there. I really appreciate it. I posted a photo of myself recently, and I got something like 200 responses to it. It's like, wow, you guys
Wow.
are really great. So it's like, I don't know what to say other than thank you. We still have some shows that were in the can that we're going to release sporadically at this point. But I'm glad to say that after all this mess between Joe and myself, no repeats, no best ofs, no weeks without a show. We're going to be on every week, just like we have been since almost 4 years ago. So I'm really thrilled. So thanks. But this is the outdated outpatient. I mean, the outdated wrestling hour. We're going to talk a little about wrestling and what do you do when you're sitting at home, right? You got to sit around for a week and there's nothing going on, and so on and so forth. You're a wrestling guy. You watch YouTube. You watch streaming services. You look for old wrestling, and I found a lot of stuff. So I am going to tell you all about, folks out there. I don't know if you're into it too, but you should be. You really should be into YouTube in this point in wrestling history if you're an old timer like I am, because it's like there's so much there, and they're finding stuff. They're finding new stuff that I've never seen before. And I'll talk about one of those things. We're gonna have a guest on the show soon who somehow gained access to a wrestling show I had never even heard of. The organization was owned by Lou Thez in '76, and he found like a dozen of these shows to put on YouTube. And I'm like, "Oh, this is great." So anyway, let's get on with some stuff, and I'll tell you where to watch all this stuff as we talk about it. But SmackDown's on the other day, and I'm going, this is not hitting the spot." So I switched over to YouTube and watched some old stuff, and I felt better about being a wrestling guy. I just miss the old days. I don't know how you feel, Joe, but I'm so nostalgic for the old times these days.
So let me just clarify that. When you say you were watching SmackDown, did you actually finish the full 2 hours and then move over to YouTube? Or were you
No,
so disillusioned that you just turned off SmackDown and went right
I
to YouTube?
was watching something blow up in Den House's laboratory, and I went, "That's it. That's all." I'm serious.
No, I know you are.
Why am I wasting my time?
I
I
hear
mean,
you.
we had members of the Knicks at Madison Square Garden doing stuff, and I'm like, why am and I love the Knicks, don't get me wrong, the championship was thrilled. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you were into it. Did you see the Knicks win the title? You're not
No.
a hoops guy. Okay,
Yeah, I,
all right,
I didn't watch it, but I get it. I mean, I get the hoopla. I get it, the excitement.
I'm telling you, you live in Long Island, live in the city here. New York City was just
Yeah.
you were fist bumping strangers as you walked down. I swear to you, it was a really cool vibe in New York City for the week. And I know people going to talk about those bastards that ripped up Manhattan afterwards. They're idiots, and they're a small pocket of what New York is really like. If we could all get together as New Yorkers, the way we do when our sports teams are winning, it turns into the greatest city you'd ever want to be a part of. I just had a wonderful time watching the Knicks.
I hear you. I mean, it definitely there's something to be said for that. Whenever sports teams, especially a team like the Knicks, where obviously they haven't had a lot of success, let's just say in
Right.
recent years. So I mean, especially in a situation like that, it really does bring people together. It doesn't matter who you are, strangers, whatever. You really come together. But getting back to the wrestling aspect, I get it. I mean, I don't see how people can watch it while it's on. I still watch the product, but again, I'm not watching SmackDown on Friday nights when it's on. Hell no, because I'm not going to sit through all the garbage, the recaps, and just the stuff like Danhausen that I have no interest in seeing Danhausen curse people backstage or whatever the hell he's doing. No, I put it on the DVR. Next morning when I'm doing something, I'm washing dishes, I'm picking stuff up around the house, I'm doing whatever, just put it on. Fast forward to the stuff you don't want to see, and before you know it, you watched about a half hour of a show, and you're done. Same thing for Raw.
Yeah, well, there you go. I think you speak for a lot of older fans who lived through the good stuff, right? I
Sure,
hate to
sure.
put it that way, but it was the good stuff back then.
Yeah, it was.
I say it again. I know when I worked for PWI, I used to get a stack of wrestling VHS tapes, and I enjoyed every show from every organization. I didn't feel my intelligence was being insulted. I liked the wrestling of the 70s and 80s. There's no other way I can put it. It's just and then when they started to mess with the formula, my enjoyment quotient goes down and down and down. And again, I'm not damning anybody who loves it now. If you like it, go watch it. You know, like the people who defend AEW breathlessly as if we're insulting their mother and stuff like that. Go ahead and feel that way. I don't care. Enjoy it. I'm serious. Life's short. Whatever you enjoy, it's legal. Do it.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm going to pick and choose my spots. It's all there is to it. We are lucky enough to have things like YouTube and the streaming services we're doing, and a couple of the pay wrestling libraries that you can find. But in any event, here's stuff I just noticed from the old days. That as I'm convalescing, this is the stuff I noticed. Now, on old WWWF programs in the 1970s, a fan favorite would start the match, referee stance, they back up. Then the fan favorite will get the bad guy in an arm bar. And invariably, every single time, you will hear somebody in the back of the crowd go, "Break it off!" Right? There's always an old man gruff voice in an arm bar. "Twist it off of him!" And they mean it. Right?
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore. In fact, they don't do that many arm bars anymore. Actually, they do, but an arm bar is more of a finisher now than it is just a. And I hate to use the term rest hold because it's not a rest hold. It's wrestling.
No, they don't do that anymore. If there's an arm bar now, there's no reaction. There's people maybe chanting boring, if anything, but they're not.
I never hear that though. Do you actually hear boring these days?
You don't hear it as much. There was a period where you did hear it more. Now I think the fans are a little bit more forgiving than maybe like even 10, 15 years ago. So you're right. You don't hear it as much anymore, but you're not going to get a reaction. I mean, I don't think a fan these days is really going to care if there's an arm bar, right? I mean, it's that's an invitation to talk to the guy next to you or walk out of the room.
You know something? I will say the matches today are faster paced. If there isn't a bar, it moves into a different older maneuver real quick. The overall pace of a wrestling match, no mat work anymore.
Right.
Not a lot of standing work. It's a lot of flying around, and that gets the crowd into it. The crowd are in it chanting people's names. If the match isn't good, the crowd makes their own show now. And they can't. Here's something else they didn't do back in the day: count the referee count on the mat. Right, 1, 2, the whole crowd goes 1, 2. Crowd didn't used to do that in my day, not at all.
No, they didn't.
I think WWE at least encourages this type of thing with the yeeting and all this other thing. It's like they sell the sizzle. It's 75% sizzle now, 80% sizzle.
They do the counting, the mimicking of the ring announcer when he says this match is scheduled for 1 fall, and the whole place chants 1 fall with him. While he does it. So it's more like, I think now it's more of like a sort of a group experience where everybody feels like, they're part of the show and they want to kind of be involved with it. So that's what it is. Whereas I think when we were watching it more, you were part of the audience. The company was putting on the show and you were there as a spectator.
It's the Rocky Horror Show now.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right? Mainly because I just saw that about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It's the Rocky Horror Show. It's made for audience feedback.
Right.
And when they're entertained, and also this is awesome. They never did that in my day.
Never, yeah.
Never.
Speaking of the "This is awesome" chant, I didn't have a problem with that chant in its initial incarnation. When people started chanting that years ago, whenever it started, because the quality of wrestling got really, really high and intense, I was okay with it. But now it's like within 5 minutes, if there's like a couple of flips outside the ring, "This is awesome" chants. It's like, I don't know if it's awesome yet. I think you got to give them a little bit more time to see if it's awesome.
Well, the precursor to "This is awesome" was the Japanese wrestling fan opera clapping.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when they get into some chain wrestling and then they'd stand up and stare at each other after a long chain?
Yeah.
And then the audience would applaud like they're at the opera.
Yeah.
You didn't hear cheering, whistling, or booing. You just heard applause, just this respectful applause.
Very
Since we have no
polite.
respect, ours is "This is awesome."
That's the difference between the two fans. Yep.
Yep. So also I'm watching a lot of old WWF, which is popped up on YouTube. There's a couple of sources that are putting the stuff up from the 70s and 80s, and I'm having a blast watching Joe McHugh and Gary Michael Capetta. But I noticed that in the days of the 3 TV shows in a single car now, for anybody who hasn't been to a TV taping in the old days, they would do 3 shows in one
Mhm.
event, and then at the end, they would do dark matches, between main eventers. I guess they kinda still follow that formula today. No, they don't. Today's TV shows are as you see them, and then they have dark matches afterwards,
Right.
at least in the WWE. So but in the days back then, it amazed me that they showed a lot of stuff from the 3rd hour when a lot of people have decided to go home. So you see a lot of empty seats even at ringside, but they still showed it on TV. It didn't phase the promoter. And somebody watching may go, you're at home, you may go, "Hey, there's nobody there. Why would I go pay a ticket to see this? Nobody there on the TV." Right?
Right.
This you
Right.
see a row of empty seats at ringside, but I guess back then they knew who their audience was, and it didn't phase them back then. And, people didn't judge stuff by how popular it was back then. People didn't look at the movie box offices back then to see if the movie that's out now is worth seeing.
Mhm.
"Oh, this is no good. It's only number 8 in the top 10, but we'll go to see the one that's number 2." Some
Mhm.
people actually think like that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But did you ever notice that sometimes, you would watch one of those old shows, there'd be scads of empty seats because they have sat in there for 3 hours.
Yeah. No, you make a good point for sure. I think I noticed it more with, certainly WWF and the NWA and the big companies, but I feel like I even noticed it more with maybe some of the regional ones, like let's say World Class at the time, because like they would kind of be
Yeah,
you'd see like, like let's say like the Von Erichs would come out and the Von Erichs would be in the crowd and you'd have all the fans, like the teenagers cheering and kind of like jumping on them and not letting them go. And then the camera would be in the crowd and then you would see like all the other areas of the stadium that were really empty. I feel like those companies, they didn't care more than the bigger companies. The bigger companies might have been a little bit more cognizant on it, but I definitely get your point. It's definitely very different today. Today, everything has to be, hard camera and get the fans on this side and make sure, we don't show the arena from this view to make
right.
it look like there's more people.
Well, there's the thing too. But if you go back to that sportatorium, uh, cut to the global days when they had trouble putting 25 people in there, and it really looked bad. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no way to make rows of empty seats look good on TV. There just isn't. Same
Mhm.
with the AWA in the winning days at the
Yeah.
Showboat. We see a half a crowd, and it's like that does not sell tickets. That does not belie excitement. I agree that when you see a full place full of heat, it's way more exciting than 10 rows that are barely watching the thing, because they've sat there for 3 hours. So I think it's always been a flaw in wrestling promotion that you would allow that to go on television. Because at the beginning of that night, you had a hot crowd, probably full to the rafters. By hour 3, we gotta get home. The kids got school tomorrow, one of those things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, why would you show that? They would never do. All I'm saying is they would never do that now. They would never
Yeah.
air that now. So also, unlike today, the interviews at ringside between matches seem totally improvised in the old days, in the 70s and 80s, especially early 80s. You got to hear Lou Albano use near slurs about the ethnic good guys. Freddie Blass used to tell those corny jokes he used to tell that it was so bad your grandfather wouldn't laugh at him. And Albano would open his shirt to show off his big belly. None of this was scripted. It was all improvised. Now, amongst the wrestlers I noticed had no flair for an off the cuff interview back then. Butcher Vachon. These guys could not do interviews when you just pointed a microphone in their face. Butcher Vachon is awful. Spiros Arian wasn't great. The heel Victor Rivera, who was completely out of place as a heel. Nikolai Volkov would never talk you into an arena, right? Others of that style. But the guys who were great at the improv, Adrian Adonis, Roddy Piper, of course, right? Stan Hansen post 1981. When he came back, when Hansen's second run, not the Bruno run, but the second run that he was an amazing interview. All of a sudden, he got really, really good on interview. I don't know if you remember that, if you're a little young for that. Ken Patera was a great interview, really rile him up. Tony Garea was a good interview. He could talk plainly and make you believe what he was saying in a realistic way. Ernie Ladd was spectacular,
Yep.
And especially the Iron Sheik.
Oh yeah.
He would constantly get crowds riled up even before he started with that Iran #1 stuff, Hawk Poo.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Uh,
guys from that era? Do you remember that were really good or really bad when they just shoved the mic in their face?
Don Morocco was always a favorite of mine in
Yeah, he was
that
good.
style because I
Mhm.
feel like he's a bit underrated in that regard. You never really hear about people talking about his interviews or promo ability, but he was good, sort of off the cuff. He wouldn't be screaming. It would be one of those guys, almost like a Jake Roberts, how they would kind of speak in this low monotone, and it worked because until he got excited, then it really, then it really showed something.
There was a sense of humor in some of Morocco's interviews.
Yeah,
Like, he'd come out eating a meatball sub, or the
yeah, I
time
remember
or the
that.
ti or the time he comes out and it's gonna be at the Meadowlands or something, and he goes, "I can't wait to do this match in New Jersey." He didn't say Jersey, he said Jersey in a
Yeah.
cool way, and he goes strutting off. He had a twinkle in his eye even when he was lambasting people. You're right, it was really good on the stick.
I feel really strongly about this one that you're bringing up because it's true. I think that's what made the promos and the interviews at ringside, whoever they were with, even the old ones. I have a vivid memory of like when McMahon used to do them at ringside, whether it was outside the Madison Square Garden, the Boston Garden, wherever. But they were so unrehearsed that
Mhm.
they would even sometimes, like, if you notice those interviews, they would sometimes step on each other verbally, meaning like they would both speak at the same time. Where nowadays, if that happens in the ring, are you kidding me? You can't do that now because now it shows that it's not perfect.
Right.
Now it's got to be like Seth Rollins is in the ring, he says his spiel, and then when he's done, then Roman Reigns is able to say what he says, then Seth Rollins, and it's got to be back and forth. But back then, it was they can speak over each other because it showed that it was real. It showed that they didn't really rehearse it, that they were really speaking off the cuff. They were just kind of speaking in the moment. And that made it so much better because it was unpolished, right?
It did, it looked real.
Yeah.
When you if you interview a baseball player who plays third base and it's after the game and he goes, "What kind of pitch did you hit on that, home run in the 8th inning?" And the guy will go, I think it was a fastball, really." And then he just talks as if you're talking to somebody. It's not a show. It's not a
Mhm.
speech.
Yeah.
It's just giving the answers to the questions. Trouble with pro wrestling is wrestlers have to kind of give an oratory, "This is what I'm like." And on the old WWF shows, they would just bring the guys out without a topic. It would be between matches, it would be a whole
Right.
segment on the show. They
Yeah.
didn't have a topic. Spiros Arian, you're making your way up the ranks right now. How does it feel to be the number one contender? And then he would just riff. Not well, but they would just riff on it. And it was completely improvised. I'm sure there were certain points they wanted to get over, but
I was going to ask that.
it led to an era of authenticity they don't have now.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, I know this is the way it was much, much less rehearsed, if rehearsed at all. But that's my question. Like back in those days, how much of it do you think was gone over
Oh,
beforehand?
very easy, the local promos. I'm not talking the promos at ringside. If you cut to the beginning of the show, it was always local promos.
Right.
And if you knew your wrestling back then on the East Coast, let's say if it was having a Pat Patterson versus Bob Backlund match, but you were having it in New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and all
Yeah.
at the same time because it was territorial and you could get away with it because nobody could tell. They would probably do a similar interview for each market.
Yeah. That makes
Those they had an idea of, this is your second match. Or you busted them open last time. Chances are that happened in all those same arenas around the horn. So those interviews were a little more predetermined because they had a running story in the arenas, which is something they don't do anymore.
right. That makes
They would
sense.
have individual arena angles as opposed to it being one big angle that they go over for 2 months before the match actually happens.
That's true. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. I wonder, I mean, what would happen if nowadays they went back to that style? Do you think it would be just a learning process where fans would eventually just be okay with it? Or would it just, because I can see like the first few times, let's say they tried to do something very unpolished like that, the fans just kind of like booing, or it being on right away would be on social media. Oh, this guy messed up. What did he do? He effed up. He must have forgotten his lines or whatever they would say, things like that.
Yeah, well,
But I wonder if there would be a learning process and it could work again if we can kind of condition people.
who could say? I've always fantasized about winning the lottery, starting a small wrestling organization, buying some TV time at 3:00 in the morning on some local station, right, for an hour, and doing it the old way.
Yeah.
I'd love to try. I really would. Wrestling is wrestling. The guys can wrestle any style they want, but I want it to be more realistic and less fancy. Could people handle it? That's my question. But if you go to your favorite indie like you used to, that was pretty old school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at least in terms of the presentation. But the trouble now, fans are conditioned to loud music and
Yes.
explosions and extracurricular stuff that never meant anything to an old fart like me. I just wondered if I presented a show where it was old school, it was just a ring and an announcer, and maybe a ringside interview in front of a couple of the matches, would people accept it? I don't
Well,
know. I don't know.
Bob, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is win the lottery, and we'll
There
find
you
out.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Hey, dollar to dream, right?
yeah.
Now, as we talked about this before, there's never been anything less exciting than WWF handicap matches. And here's why. They would always pick two complete amateur good guys, like guys they just threw trunks on, who get filleted and mashed in the mat by the rule breaker every time. They wouldn't even get any. They were like little guys or fat guys, and they would just like they would. I saw Spiros Arian have a handicap match during my. Now Andre the Giant used to engage in a lot of handicap matches, and I just saw one where he took on Johnny Rods and Barry Mikel Cicluna. And before the match, at the beginning of the show, remember when Bruno used to do color commentary?
Sure.
He actually said, "This is going to be Andre's first loss. There's no way he could beat two opponents of that caliber." So I hate to say it, but I'm going with how he would.
Mhm.
Vince would ask him to pick who's going to win. I think I got to go with Cicluna and Rods. Of course, Andre smushed them. They weren't going to do anything differently. It was a more competitive handicap match, but it's still not good. Handicap matches, right? We talked about this before. Not great.
Yeah, like you said, we've talked about it. The Andre handicap matches, I always got a kick out of because it was Andre. I always felt like he was the one guy that could pull it off just because of his gimmick. He was supposed to be the wrestling's true giant, larger than life. He was billed as 7'4", 7'5". So if there's anyone that you're going to put in a handicap match, that was the guy for it. I never really cared for the handicap matches with the other wrestlers because I just always felt it was just didn't make sense. 2 versus 1, or unless you're supposed to be this monster giant, I just never got it. But
Now I have to correct myself. On this podcast, but I'd say I listen to the podcast. I do a post-mortem every Friday when the show comes out, and I take a drive. I put it on in the car, and I go and get my breakfast or whatever, or I was up until this point anyway. And I made a few errors lately. I said wrong first names and stuff, but I have to correct myself about one thing here. Joe Turco was indeed introduced as the Continental Nobleman in the WWF, at least once. I stated they only called him that in the IWA. Nope, it was in both organizations. I just watched the match between Turco and Dominic DeNucci. McMahon referred to Turco as the demonic Joe Turco. And I'm going, demonic? He's this little guy with a big mustache. What's that all about? It took me a while to figure out it was because of his devilish ring coat. It kind of had that drug, dime store Halloween costume devil look to it. So I guess that's why he called it that. Now, I watched some regional wrestling lately. Here's some trivia for you fans out there. I did not know that Turco also went by the ring name Mario Leone. Same guy, same shtick, but he was Mario Leone. So I know that Mr. Steve Gennarelli is a big Joe Turco fan, so I wanted him to know he was also known as Mario Leone. I mean, he's Italian? Well, maybe you'll get a kick out of that. I don't know.
yeah, I bet he will.
Here's another thing that's changed over the years. Putting your foot on the ropes or under the ropes before a pinfall used to be looked upon as a sign of cowardice. That was considered a shortcut method, according to Vince McMahon back in the old days. Now it's considered part of strategy.
Yeah, that's true, because now that I think about it, it was rare for a babyface to do that in the older days, right? Because it would be sort of out of character for a babyface because it was like you're taking an easy way out. But I think now it's done by anyone, right? It doesn't matter what role you're playing. It's just basically good strategy. You put it under there. It doesn't matter if you're Cody Rhodes or Gunther. It doesn't matter.
The philosophy behind that has changed. Reaching for the ropes for a break.
Yep.
Oh, I just watching him actually. Oh, look at him. He grabbed the ropes. He couldn't break the hold on his own. They don't do that anymore. It's considered strategy.
Yep.
But then again, strategy these days is when you have 3 people outside the ring who are going to interfere. And the announcers like Joe Tessitore go, well, you got to look out for those people at ringside. Why should you have to look out for people at ringside? Joe is laughing. No, it's ridiculous. The referee, where is the referee? You can't see 3 people in their posse waiting to interfere? Why are they out there otherwise? Go yay team, yay team?
I don't think they do this anymore. When a guy would come out to ringside that was sort of like involved in the program, but the commentator would say, like, well, why is he here? Oh, it's because he was able to get himself a 30-day managerial's license. So they would make some kind of cockamamie excuse why a guy was allowed to be a second at ringside. Oh, he got special privileges to be a manager tonight. Now that's completely out the window because, again, it doesn't matter who's at ringside. Anyone could be at ringside. You could bring your whole family to ringside and it wouldn't be a big deal.
That's right. That's right. Let's take a turn to something a little more recent, but still old. Have you watched the first episodes of Dark Side of the Ring as we record this, where they do a look at Jeff Jarrett and the TNA?
Absolutely.
And how great was that?
That show never disappoints.
No, I mean, some people are upset that they didn't get the side of a point of view from a couple of the management types and a couple of the wrestlers. But if they're contacted and they say, no, you can't present it. So,
yeah,
but I will say this. I was the huge fan, and I was with PWI in the days of the original Jeff Jarrett, the long-haired Jeff Jarrett in Memphis and in Texas. When he went to Texas, he was every bit as over as he was in Memphis. And then he cut his hair, and they invented this faux country music singer with a guitar he was going to hit people with. Of course, we already saw that with the Honky Tonk Man, but that's what they did. I don't know if it's whether they thought Jarrett was undersized a little bit or something in the beginning. He was a good talker, but I always preferred the original Jeff Jarrett. And I met him during that period, and we had a nice conversation. I just liked the way he worked. He looked great. Nobody even thought of him as the promoter's son in Memphis. I'm telling you, nobody looked at it that way. He was good enough to work on his own. I think he's vastly underrated. And you know what? He's a really good guy. I was sorry to learn of some of the demons that caught up to him after a while on that show. I guess it was the 3-parter or whatever it was.
Yes.
It was a 3-parter. Yeah, I watched all of it in one sitting. And I got to tell you, I admire him more now, coming back what he came back from. And I think he's a rock solid guy underneath all this. I really do. And they're off to a blazing start. That may have been my favorite Dark Side of the Rings of all time.
The TNA episodes?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, okay. It really grabbed me. I mean, I didn't know a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the Karen Angle thing and how much of it was a work and how it was a shoot. I had no idea. People are disputing what they saw on TV and social media, of course. But, we just heard the people who were involved talk about it. So I would tend to take their side, sort of,
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it too. I think Karen Angle or Karen Jarrett, if she's known by that now, but I think she did a really good job. Yeah, and one thing I did read too was that the original idea for those episodes by Evan Husney and those guys that created the show was to actually do a full season of sorts on TNA, make it all about TNA, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But they would have had enough material. There's so much more that they could have gotten into. But I think Vice or whoever makes those decisions, I think they said, let's compromise here. They did 3 episodes. It was really good. As far as the complaints about management, I know the biggest omission was Dixie Carter, who obviously wasn't on the show, but again, she was asked, and she turned them down. So that's her prerogative. She didn't want to do it. But even without her, it would have been great with her. I would have loved to hear her comments now, all these years later. But even without her, I thought they did a really good job.
Well, the other things I'll mention is in the day, I thought Karen Jarrett was fabulous on camera. She was great. She looked like she was born to do it. She was perfect in her role. And then the other thing that made me upset was to know that Jeff and Jerry Jarrett had a breaking of the ways and talked to each other for a long time. I had no idea.
A pretty good amount of knowledge on that. And I just remember when I heard about that originally thinking that was so sad.
I learned a lot, because here's the guy. I'm still keeping the ring in my mind's eye. Even in today's stuff where there's so much juicy scuttlebutt, I don't care. I care about the matches. I care about the angles. I care about the wrestlers, watching them. That used to be enough when I was a kid, and it's still enough for me. I really don't want to know about it. It doesn't, frost my cake to know that somebody's arguing with somebody else backstage. I don't care. I mean, in retrospect, since they're telling the story of TNA, that meant something. The fact that Jerry Jarrett took off, but overall, leave it for a documentarian like Evan and Dark Side of the Ring to cover that, because it's like They're going to try to make sure that everything is not scuttlebutt, that it's minute rights perfect, that it's fact instead of fiction, and people are there to set records straight. So, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
sure.
Maybe that maybe it says, Bob, you're not really a journalist. I'm a journalist, but with wrestling, it's a different ball of wax. And the sheets are on the line. Oh, this guy's re-signed with WWE. He's going to be a SmackDown Friday. So he's supposed to be a surprise. The guy comes running down into the ring, and there's people in the audience that always say, "Welcome back," whoever it is. Like, "Welcome back, Paige." You remember that one?
Uh-huh.
Because they let the cat out of the bag. What's the fun in that?
It happened with AJ Lee as well when she came back
Yeah.
with CM Punk. Becky Lynch was in the ring slapping CM Punk. All the fans are chanting AJ, AJ, because they knew she was coming back on that show.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, if you think about it, isn't it like the same thing as like if you're going to see, you said like the next week a wrestler's coming back, you're going to see a movie. And do people want to know? Like, you wouldn't want to go into watching a movie and
Know how it
knowing
ended.
what's
Yeah.
going to happen, knowing like, oh, this is going to happen next. Why would you want to know that?
Ralph crammed in on their honeymoon. He's got 2 free tickets to some murder mystery on Broadway, and the mother-in-law comes in and tells him what the finish is, and she's, "Get out.
Yeah.
2 tickets ruined." And he's absolutely right. This is the perfect analogy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He didn't want to go. He gave the tickets to Norton.
Right.
So
Right.
so, yeah, I don't understand. You see, here's the thing. We're living in a time when everybody wants to be backstage at wrestling. They want to
Yes.
know who's arguing. Oh, why isn't this guy getting the push? I find the stuff exceptionally boring. It's just not for me. But we'll get on to something else here. I've watched a lot of old WWF lately, and it's around 78 I find a match where they're interviewing Larry Zbyszko and Tony Gurria at ringside. And they want to be the number one contenders for Tanaka and Fuji's world tag team title. But they have to get past the other guys who are also vying to be the number one contenders. And it shocked me when they introduced the ones who were even with Gurria and Zbyszko as Dynamite Jack Evans and Larry Sharp. They had pushed that tag team like I couldn't believe. Like Evans essentially was a jobber for years in the 70s there, but they painted his hair golden blonde and they kind of wore the same ring garb. So they were almost like a budget Valiant Brothers, right? So all of a sudden they got a push, but it shocked me. In fact, according to some reports, now check this out. Gorilla Monsoon, who was a bigwig behind the scenes back then, sent them to Puerto Rico where they won the WWC Tag Team title, the World Wrestling Council. Larry Sharp and Jack Evans.
Wow.
So talk about a late bloomer, because I know that Evans had been in the organization forever and was just another face in the crowd. I think that's kind of cool. The Jack Evans thing's always intrigued me with his late push. It was sort of as if they gave a push to Frankie Williams or somebody like that. He was
Right.
he was shortish guy. He could work, but he didn't really stand out. But so they made him look like one of the Valiant brothers, right? While researching this, I found out that Jack Evans also in that late period from the late 70s to early 80s was one of the 840 people called Dr. X. Actually, Mr. X, excuse me.
Mr. X. Yeah, yeah.
He was one of the many Mr. X's out there. But now check this out. He was also part of the main event scene, Jack Evans was, in the waning days of NWA Hollywood around 1980. So I continued to look into Jack Evans. In various eras, he defeated Tony Gurria, Don Coronado, who was an NWA Tag Team Champion, Mike George, Jim Wilson, Arnold Skolin, Randy Colley, who turned out to be a moondog later on, and wrestled draws with, now dig this, this is Jack Evans we're talking about, Larry Zbyszko, Ronnie Garvin, and Steve Kern. Once again, folks, I put it to you, there is no such thing as a jobber. You never know. He went to Japan, too, for long stretches. Long stretches. It's how you're used. This is why when somebody goes, oh, he's just a jobber, I want to, no, there's no such, I'm telling you. When it was territorial, you could be a main eventer. I look at a guy like Tank Patton, who was a top heel, but in the WWF, he came in and was in the middle of the card. It's just the way it's worked. It's the way the promoter feels like you're using the particular talent. Maybe a guy with a real Southern accent they felt would never go over in the East, right? Unless he played a cowboy or something. So they end up a mid-card. Doug Gilbert from the AWA, who for years was an AWA star, came to the WWF in the late 70s, early 80s, middle of the card. They just didn't feel he had that certain factor where he would mesh well with the existing stars, I think. So this is why I really want to preach. Johnny Rods wasn't a jobber, man. You know what I mean? By the way, he's going on the show soon, folks. I've been in touch with Johnny Rods. He's coming on. So don't point at somebody calling him a jobber. How do you feel about that? Now, today it may be different, but nobody jobs today either.
Well, yeah, as far as today, there's certainly nobody in that quote unquote jobber role. But yeah, you're right. I mean, any of these guys could have went anywhere depending on the territory, depending on where they are, where they
Yeah.
were in their career, and they could have been kind of positioned into different roles. As far as the talent and the ability of these guys, again, I've always been a proponent of the ability that they had. They were, in a lot of cases, they were just as talented as the quote unquote superstars or whatever you call them, the headliners or whatever the term was, because they went out there. That's a skill in and of itself. What they had to do, take these moves and basically make the other individual in the ring look like he was $1 million. So their talent was just as good as whoever
Yes.
they were supposedly losing to, because again, everybody, it's a work. So it's like, it's not like it doesn't matter it doesn't matter who's winning, right? Because it's a work. It's basically telling a story.
There's some guys you couldn't make stars of for one reason or another. Frankie Williams, right? He looked like a chain smoking guy who left his luncheon home. That's the way I always put it. But he
Exactly.
could sell
Yes.
like $1 million.
And
Steve King from the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Came up with your belt buckle. That was his problem. You can't promote him as a main eventer, but you could put him at first match at Madison Square Garden. He could win. When they were left alone to actually show their skills, you'd be surprised how good some of these guys really were. Larry Sharp was a great wrestler. Became a
Sure.
great trainer. But you think of them as jobbers, but there never were. It's a funny thing. It's like, again, the only one of all this so-called enhancement or preliminary wrestlers that I can think of, the only one who never got a big push in the East was Johnny Rods. I didn't understand it because he's as good as anybody, but also worked there for 30 years. So is there something to be said for that too?
And he's still really well remembered today.
Are you kidding? He's one of the most influential people in the
Yeah.
whole wrestling business. He really is. Trish Stratus meets Johnny Rods. I see this. I'm there in Albany at the Hall of Fame, and she knew all about him. I don't know if she'd ever met him, but she knew all about him.
Mhm.
And it was exciting to watch because she was like a fan like everybody else talking to him. We all were. So it was really, really cool. I mean, look, this is why I admire Gene Ligon as much as Ric Flair and Frankie Williams as much as Bruno Sammartino. To get in that ring and make a living and do what's got to be one of the hardest sports to be part of, I give everybody their props. And I thank them all for all the great moments because you know what? Here we are 30, 40, 50 years later talking about the old stuff I watched when I was a wee tadpole. So what can I say?
Go back to the old analogy I just used with the movies. Think about it this way. You watch a really good movie and there's lead actors, right? You have your actors that are basically the lead in the movie and they have most of the screen time and that's it. But what about character actors? I mean, character actors, guys and girls that are in movies and they have a role that's maybe lasts for 10, 15 minutes and it's not on the marquee with their name, but they play an integral role in the movie or TV show. You want to see that movie and you say, oh, how great was this guy? He stole the show. He was great, but he's not the leading man or the leading woman. It's sort of the same thing. I know it's, a little different in the sense, but it's sort of the same thing because the the so-called jobbers are basically a pivotal part of the match.
It's a Wonderful Life, the film. If you watch that film closely, the kid who played Alfalfa in The Little Rascals has a role in It's a Wonderful Life. He wants to dance with Mary, and George Usher when he
Sure.
goes, "Hey, that's Alfalfa." Also, in one of the scenes is a character actor who I recognize from about 25 Three Stooges films.
Right.
So there were people in Hollywood like Vernon Dent and like the B players that you would see, the blonde lady in the Three Stooges shorts. Those people acted all the time.
Yep.
Because they were really good at what they did. There was some factor that didn't make them, big screen superstars, but they acted and acted and acted, and they all lived in the Hollywood area because they made enough money from doing 25 movies in a year and having 3 lines in them.
Right.
You see what I mean? It's the same thing. It's the same
Exactly.
exact thing. You've got the talent, you've got the skill. Some people would consider you lesser because you only had 3 lines, but as I think it was Robin Williams once said, "Hey, you're in the show."
Exactly.
It's a reason why there's a young lady right now who got her first Broadway role as the 4th dancer. She doesn't care that she's the 4th dancer and having the lines. She's in the show.
Right. And that's why in so many movie reviews, critic reviews, how many times do you see, or I should say, do you read in a review, so and so stole the show, or so and so,
Yeah.
and the reason why that's a well-known sort of line, it's a cliche, but it's because the reason why that makes so much sense is because you wouldn't think that person should be stealing the show because they're not the lead or they're not the person that everyone is supposedly paying money to see, but they steal the show because they make the most of what they have.
The guy who does the farmers insurance commercials has an Academy Award. I rest my case. The bald
Yeah.
guy?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
He
I
goes,
know what you're talking
"Well,
about.
if you had farmers, you could do the" he walks into an accident scene or something.
Right, right.
I wouldn't do that for you. I would do this. He has an Academy Award. It doesn't matter. If you hit the right role, you hit that right note. That's how a young wrestler becomes a star after a while, you know?
Sure.
That's how an Eddie Gilbert could be a main eventer. It's how, other unlikely main eventers, Santina Morella.
Mhm.
You just hit that note just right, you know? Although they brought him with kind of trumpets and horn. They gave him the Intercontinental title right away, I remember. But I'd like to see a wrestler's career bloom from the undercard to the main event. I think that's always exciting. Bryan Danielson, maybe? In the
Um,
beginning in WWE,
it
well, first of all, he got fired before he got started, but that was a problem. But
yeah, yeah.
he was a slow build. He had to convince people he was the main eventer.
Yeah, I mean, he was an interesting case because he was already in the, he was considered like he was basically god of the indies, of Ring of
Right,
Honor, all those places. He was like considered the
right.
greatest wrestler in the world. But of course, going to WWF, it's like, you start from the bottom. So yes, when he first got there, they had no intention to really push him to the moon. And then look what happened. They just little by little, the fans wanted it and they built him up and he became a huge star.
Yep. And then there's the other way around. Matt Cardone was in WWE, got released, busted his ass on the indies, came back, and now he's real popular. You think he cares his one loss record isn't great so far? They'll find something for him to do. They always do. Chelsea Green too. People complaining they don't get used right. From all accounts, those two are the happiest people in wrestling.
Hey, if their wallets are full, which I'm sure they are,
Yeah,
I'm sure they're laughing all the way to the bank.
yeah. I like both of them every time they show up. I have become a big Chelsea Green fan and Matt Cardona too. I think they get it. I appreciate that. They understand how the business works. They're like 50-year-old wrestlers that aren't 50.
Yeah,
They've seen it all already and they know exactly what to expect and what they have to do to make it a better show.
right.
And I think they're both fantastic. I really do. So if I have any heroes of today's wrestlers, Matt and Chelsea are two. CM Punk's another one. I think he gets lambasted for no reason all the time. I do think he's a little old too, but you know what? He's holding his own. There's a few people that I admire in today's wrestling scene. Don't get me wrong. The people who have the stick to itiveness, the ones who always put on good matches. Damian Priest has jumped up in my eyes, even though right now he's in like a holding pattern. Even though he's a tag team champion, I think he's great. I really do. There's no flaws there.
Yeah, he's improved and he's improved a lot. And wow, talk about a guy that really had a transformation. You ever see those old pictures of him?
Him and Gunther, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, pretty impressive. But
And Gunther, of course, I think he's just the bee's knees. So Nick
yeah,
Aldis. At the time we're taping this, they're going to fight each other. I can't believe it.
I gotta say I'm really a big fan of that angle because
Yeah.
I've always liked all this, and I just think they've been building this up for so long that I'm glad there's actually going to be a payoff because it could have been one of those things where they just sort of, the GM and he gets beat
Yeah.
up and then they just kind of have somebody fight for him. It's like, oh, Nick Aldis is going to have this person step in, one of those things. In this case, he's actually going to get in there, put the tights on. So I for one, that's probably the SummerSlam match that I'm looking forward to most right now.
You know what I always have wanted to see? This is just the way I am. I want to see Adam Pearce against Nick Aldis. The
I thought
battle
they
of the
were going to do
GMs.
that
I
for a
really
while
did
there.
too, because they
Yeah,
were at loggerheads for a bit.
yeah,
Anyway, I'm just really excited to see Aldis strap him up because most people, he just kind of showed up and they made him the GM without
yeah,
giving a whole lot of backstory about him. Now, I'm sure they're not going to mention the NWA World Title, but by the same token, he was like one of the kings in the Indies for about
yeah.
10 years at least. So I hope they do give him a little backstory just to make the fans a little more excited about that contest. I think most people right now think that Gunther's just going to kill him in 2 minutes. I hope that's not the case.
I hope so too. I wonder if Mickey James will be involved in some way in that, if she'll be at ringside or something.
That
Or
would be really cool. Well, we'll see. We will see about that. So anyway, Joe, good to see you again. It's been a while. It's been a weird year so far for me. I guess for you too. You just never know what's going to happen, do you? I mean, it's amazing what we both kind of went through, but we're both here. We're still kicking, and you look good. You look fine. I hope at least you had some fun in Mexico.
Oh, Mexico was great. This is not meant to be a complaint about Mexico. I hope I didn't sound that way. I just said, I probably picked up, again, it was either a bug in Mexico or it could have been on the plane. There's just as much of a chance to pick something up in these planes. But no, Mexico itself was phenomenal.
I'm not going to put on my soapbox, and I know I'm going to have a certain breed of listener that's going to poo-poo me for this, but I don't care. Dude, if you go on a crowded bus or an airplane, wear a mask. Seriously, a flimsy.
Yeah.
You may have avoided a cold or a flu or some kind of a virus. I just know that people in my life personally have had a virus that's been lasting for 5-6 weeks. Something's going around. They're not talking about that either. But seriously, if you know you're going to be armpit to armpit with people,
yeah,
take a little protection with you. I know some people will frown at you or point at you, or some idiots will even say something.
Yeah.
They work. Would you rather have somebody make a snide remark on a plane or come home with a virus?
Yeah, you're right.
It's a big tube full of influenza. If one person has it, you're all going to get it.
It is. If you really think about a plane, what it is, I mean, it is. It's like there's no ventilation. You're just in this place with all these people. It's not like it was too where, it's very rare these days to be on an empty plane. It's going to be, packed. Think about the seats and the germs and everything. Yeah. So it's totally understandable. You're right. I mean, it's definitely a good suggestion.
It's the same thing when I get on a city bus. I'm in New York City and I ride the buses because why pay to drive, right? So I take buses everywhere here, especially when I go into the middle of Manhattan, and you're going to have 75 people, something like that on a bus. And you're right. There's very little ventilation. You're really close to people you don't even know.
Yeah.
I slip it on quickly when I sit down. As I leave the bus, I take it off, and then I'm normal otherwise. But I don't want a cold. I don't want a flu. It's really bad.
Yep.
I have had some hellacious touch and go flus in my time. I don't want to risk it, especially at my age. I can't handle a flu like I used to, And besides, the Lilliput makes lousy chicken soup. It tastes like it tastes like butter in water. That's what it tastes like. It's awful. Thank you, Bob. 10 minutes from now. Anyway, good to see you, my friend. Before I go, make sure you check out GenerationXWire.com, the entertainment website. I'm sure you've had a lot of new things. It's been a long time since I've talked to you, so I'm sure you've got a bunch of new items. Give me one that you think people should check out.
I'm just going to say it. There's a few things. Yeah, I'm trying to think of since we last taped, but being that this is the Outdated Wrestling Hour and we were talking about TNA, I'll say Vince Russo. I interviewed Vince. It was I know he's a pretty polarizing figure, but it was a great interview. We talked a lot about TNA. He's basically promoting his new book, which is all about his time at TNA. But of course, we talked about everything, but TNA was a big part of it. That's on the website right now, a feature on him.
I met and talked to Vince Russo on my previous podcast that I was on. I like him. I like him a lot. I don't like the job he's done. There's a difference, right?
Yeah,
As a booker, he's done a lot of things I really, really don't like. But as a human being, I think he's fine. You see what I mean? You gotta be able to separate that. Never villainize somebody for doing a poor job at something you like.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the people who will boo their own, shortstop when they go to see a Met game. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right? Separate the person from the job they do. Somebody could be a great person, but if the job they do isn't up to snuff, you have a right to criticize the job, but don't make a character assassination about the person. I think Vince is a good guy.
I think so too. I think he seems like pretty genuine. He seems like he was really just speaking to him. And as far as the job and his booking and his, it's so controversial, all the stuff he's done. I mean, I'll be honest, there's a lot of it I didn't like. I did like some of the stuff that he came up with. I think it's just a matter of I respect that he did what he really thought should be done. I mean, he has a different mentality, and that's the bottom line. It's that, everybody talks about the rivalry between him and Jim Cornette. That's the big one, right? Because Cornette is sort of the old school and Russo is new school and all this. I get it. Everybody has their preferences. He believed what he was doing. He believed that it should be sort of the Jerry Springer pro wrestling when he took over. So it is what it is. But again, I just think he did what he thought was best. I mean, the guy's still out there. The guy's writing books. The guy's got his podcast. The guy's still we're still talking about him. in 2026. So good for him, right?
Yep, absolutely. How many times did he call you bro?
You want to know? Let me just say something really quick about that.
Yeah.
When I told my a couple of my buddies that I was doing the interview that day, one of them, he suggested to me, he's like, can we take bets? He's like, I want to know when that interview's done. He's like, I want to know how many times, literally, how many times he says it. He did. I did not count, but he did say it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And in my article, though, I purposely, when I quoted him in different, I purposely only added the bro once in one of his quotes, just because I wanted to make it authentic. But I also didn't want to. That's ridiculous, to keep putting bro in your
Nobody
quote.
would do that. No.
But I did it once just because, hey, that's him. That's what he's saying,
That's what he says. Yeah.
So I said that, but it is kind of funny because it's just from the beginning to the end. It was just bro this and bro that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's who you invited on. So anyway, check out the interview with Vince Russo on Generation X Wire. That's a good one for our audience here. I appreciate that. So in any event, thank you all. I will be back to wrap up this clam bake here. I hope you're all having a nice summer out there, and we are going to integrate new shows in with our pre-recorded shows that we did before I got knocked out of action. You will hear a new show every Friday. Be aware of that. We'll be right back in just a second. Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with the elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Thank you once again, Joe Puccio, and thank you everybody out there for listening. It really means a lot. We're shoving this one kind of to the top of our list of upcoming shows because, well, we're back. We do have some remaining shows that were pre-recorded that we are going to issue in the coming weeks. We want to get this out as soon as we can, just to let you know we're here. Everything's fine. And all the well wishes I've gotten are really, really appreciated. So thank you very much. Onward and upward, as they say. This is the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We have a secondary podcast called the Outdated Entertainment Hour, and both are productions of Bob Smith Podcasts. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith singing with BB King. Drop me a note. Say hi. You can also find Bob Smith either as outdated_Bob or just plain Bob Smith on Threads, X, Facebook, as I always mention, Blue Sky, and Instagram. And on Instagram, every week we do a musical background and tell you what's on the show. Instagram's a great way to find out what's going on the show. It's a lot of fun. We do the same thing on Facebook, too. In Facebook stories, we will offer a photo of our guest, as well as some music that will make you guess about what topic we have each week. We put that out every Friday. And our shows come out every Friday as well. Also on the Outdated Wrestling Hour website, which is outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com, you can find all of our older shows right there. Touch of a button, listen to them anytime. I will not Patreon you for those. In addition, you can find out about the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, which for like $3 a month, if you can spare it, we can use it because it helps us perpetuate both this show and the Outdated Entertainment Hour, which will be up again in, I guess at this point in August, we'll have a brand new show for you. And we've had a lot of good stuff happening behind the scenes, putting new ones together as we hustled to get back into the rhythm here. It's really tough. I couldn't do podcasts without a mouth. We'll put it that way. And it's been a head tripping experience, but I'm grateful for everything that's happened. So I'm grateful for you too. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We got some good shows coming up. We got a Wrestling Hall of Famer coming up as soon as I can get the show out. We're going to have some fun. The fall is going to be our hot month, I tell you right now. And I want to thank Steve Gennarelli and Brian R. Solomon and a lot of the other guests that we've had who have stepped in at the last minute. William Savage as well. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you hanging in with us. And we appreciate you, listeners, hanging in with us. And we'll be back every Friday with something new and fresh that's old. Like our placard says, all new, all old. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. My name is Bob Smith. Thank you. And like we always say at the end of every episode, like Ringo Starr says, he's going on tour this fall, by the way. Look for Ringo coming to a town near you. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.